I never thought I'd be sharing my story on YouTube, but here I am. My name is Marcus, and this is the story of how my picture-perfect marriage crumbled because of what my wife called therapy sessions. I'm 35, and until recently I was married to Sophia, a 29-year-old marketing executive who I thought was the love of my life. The first time I noticed something was wrong was on a Wednesday morning in late autumn. I remember it vividly, the way the sunlight slanted through our bedroom window, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. I reached out habitually to touch Sophia's side of the bed, finding only cold sheets. The lingering trace of her jasmine perfume on the pillow brought back memories of happier times, making something catch in my throat. We met 3 years ago at what was supposed to be one of the happiest celebrations of life, a pregnancy announcement party. My best friend Tom and his wife Maria had been trying for over a decade to have a child, and when they finally succeeded, they threw an intimate dinner party to share their joy. That's where I first saw Sophia, standing by the window with a glass of champagne, her dark hair catching the golden light of sunset. She was Maria's closest friend from college, and something about her quiet grace immediately drew me in. I own a custom furniture workshop, and Sophia worked in digital marketing for a major tech company. We were opposites in many ways. She was reserved and analytical, while I was more outgoing and creative. But somehow we fit together perfectly. Our differences complemented each other, creating a balance that made our relationship feel effortless. The first 2 years of our marriage were like living in a dream. We'd spend weekends exploring local farmers' markets, where I'd study the grain patterns and wooden crafts while Sophia would methodically compare organic produce prices. Evenings were filled with quiet conversations about our hopes and dreams, curled up on the oversized leather couch I'd made as a wedding gift to us. We never raised our voices at each other, never went to bed angry, and always found ways to compromise. When Sophia got pregnant, we were overjoyed. We'd planned it carefully, waiting until we felt ready both emotionally and financially. Throughout the pregnancy, I watched in awe as her body changed, carrying our child. She was beautiful, but I could see the worry in her eyes whenever she looked in the mirror. Sophia had always been conscious about her appearance, but I never thought it would become an obsession. Our son Leo was born on a rainy spring morning. He was perfect, 7 pounds, 6 ounces of pure joy with Sophia's olive skin and my green eyes. But while I was lost in the miracle of new fatherhood, I missed the signs that Sophia was spiraling. Looking back now, I should have seen it coming. It started with small comments about her body. "My stomach looks like a road map," she'd say, tracing the stretch marks with trembling fingers. "These aren't just baby pounds anymore, Marcus. I'm losing myself." I tried to reassure her, tell her how beautiful she was, how proud I was of her for bringing our son into the world. But my words seemed to bounce off an invisible wall she'd built around herself. Sophia's mother, Isabella, moved in with us to help with the baby. She was a godsend, caring for Leo while Sophia threw herself into increasingly intense home workouts. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. to feed the baby, only to hear the rhythmic thud of Sophia's feet on the treadmill in our basement. She'd work out for hours, pushing herself to exhaustion until one day she collapsed. That should have been our wake-up call. For a brief moment it seemed like it was. Sophia stopped the extreme workouts, and for a few weeks, our home felt peaceful again. Isabella and I exchanged hopeful glances over dinner, thinking maybe the worst was behind us. Then came the yoga classes. "I found this amazing wellness center," Sophia announced one evening, her eyes bright with an intensity one hadn't seen in months. "They specialize in postpartum recovery through yoga. The instructor, James, has incredible reviews." James. Even now, typing his name makes my hands shake with anger. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Back then, I was just happy to see Sophia excited about something that seemed healthy. I encouraged her to sign up, thinking this might be exactly what she needed to heal both physically and mentally. If only I'd known that those healing sessions would be the beginning of the end of our marriage. Looking back, the changes in Sophia were subtle at first, like watching shadows lengthen as the sun sets. She started attending yoga classes once a day, then twice. Each time she returned home, she seemed lighter, more energetic. Her eyes had a sparkle I hadn't seen since before the pregnancy, and for a while, I fooled myself into thinking we were getting our life back on track. But while Sophia was finding her inner peace, our home life was crumbling. Isabella, bless her heart, was essentially raising Leo by herself. I'd come home from the workshop, Sada still clinging to my clothes, to find her exhausted from a full day of baby care. Sophia had started pumping breast milk and leaving it in bottles rather than nursing Leo directly. "It's more efficient this way," she'd say, already dressed in her yoga gear and halfway out the door. The first red flag I chose to ignore came in the form of a text message notification that flashed across her phone one evening. We were sitting on opposite ends of the couch, another change I tried not to read too much into. Sophia was focused on her phone, a small smile playing on her lips. The message preview read, "Your form was perfect today. You're making incredible progress." It was from James, her instructor. My stomach churned, but I pushed the feeling aside. She was getting healthy, finding herself again. Wasn't that what I wanted? But the late-night classes started soon after. Advanced sessions, she called them. One-on-one training to really perfect the poses. The breaking point came on a Thursday night. Leo was running a slight fever, nothing serious but enough to make any parent worried. I called Sophia's phone repeatedly, but it went straight to voicemail. When she finally came home at 11 p.m., her hair was slightly damp, and she smelled of unfamiliar soap. "Where were you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level as I rocked our fussy son. "I told you I had a private session with James." She wouldn't meet my eyes. "My phone died and I needed to shower after." "The studio has facilities." "Our son is sick, Sophia. He needed his mother." She flinched as if I'd slapped her. "He has you and Mom." "I need this, Marcus. You don't understand what it's like to feel trapped in a body you don't recognize anymore." That night we had our first real fight. Words were thrown like daggers, accusations from me, defensive justifications from her. When I suggested she was spending too much time at the yoga studio, she stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to wake Leo. It was the first night in our marriage she didn't come home. I stayed up all night, calling everyone we knew, growing increasingly frantic. Isabella sat with me, her face drawn with worry, alternating between trying to reach Sophia and caring for Leo. When the sun rose, painting our living room in shades of gold and pink, Sophia walked in as if nothing had happened. "I stayed at a hotel," she said casually, dropping her gym bag by the door. "I needed space to think." I apologized first, swallowing my pride and suspicions. She apologized too, and for a few days things seemed to improve. She spent more time at home, even held Leo for longer than usual. But there was a distance in her eyes that hadn't been there before, as if she was physically present but her mind was somewhere else, or with someone else. The messages started becoming more frequent. Her phone would buzz constantly during dinner, but she'd turn it face down, that same small smile playing on her lips. She started changing her passwords, angling her screen away when I walked past. Each time I tried to bring up my concerns, she'd accuse me of being controlling, of not supporting her journey to reclaim her body and confidence. One night, after she'd gone to bed early claiming exhaustion from her evening yoga session, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her phone. Most of her message history with James was deleted, but the latest exchange made my blood run cold. "James, still feeling sore from today?" "Sophia, yes, but in a good way. Your magic touch always knows exactly what I need." "James, same time tomorrow? We can work on those special stretches." "Sophia, can't wait. You make me feel alive again." My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. The words blurred before my eyes as memories flashed through my mind, all the late nights, the secretive smiles, the sudden password changes. Everything I'd been trying so hard not to see suddenly came into crystal clear focus. But I needed proof. I needed to know for certain that what I suspected wasn't just my imagination running wild. I needed to see it with my own eyes, even though I knew the truth would destroy me. So I made a plan. The next evening, I did something that would change our lives forever. That Friday evening, I told Isabella the first needed to run some errands. The weight of my phone felt like a brick in my pocket as I drove to the wellness center, parking my truck around the corner where it wouldn't be visible from the main entrance. The yoga class was scheduled to end at 7:30 p.m., but Sophia had mentioned her special session would run later. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The autumn air had turned crisp, and my breath formed small clouds in the darkening evening. I watched as students began filtering out of the building around 7:45, their yoga mats slung over their shoulders, chatting and laughing among themselves. No sign of Sophia. 8 p.m. Still no Sophia. 8:15 p.m. The parking lot had emptied except for two cars. I recognized Sophia's silver SUV and what I assumed was James's black Tesla. 8:30 p.m. My phone buzzed with a text from Isabella. "Leo's asking for his goodnight kiss. When will you be home?" I felt like I was going to be sick. The wellness center's main lights had dimmed, but I could see a faint glow from the second-floor studio. My legs felt like lead as I walked toward the building. The front door was locked, but I remembered Sophia mentioning a side entrance that members could access with a keycard. There was a small window next to it, partially covered by decorative bamboo. What I saw through that window shattered my world into a million pieces. The studio was lit only by scattered candles, creating an intimate atmosphere that made my stomach turn. Sophia was there, wearing the expensive yoga outfit I'd bought her for her birthday. But she wasn't doing yoga. She was sitting on James's lap, his hands roaming places that made my vision blur with rage. They were laughing between kisses, looking for all the world like teenage lovers stealing a forbidden moment. I could have burst in. I could have confronted them right there. But something made me take out my phone instead. My hands were surprisingly steady as I recorded several minutes of their betrayal. Maybe it was self-preservation, or maybe I knew I'd need proof later. Either way, I forced myself to watch as my wife, the mother of my child, gave herself to another man with more passion than she'd shown me in months. The drive home was a blur. I remember pulling over twice to throw up. The steering wheel was wet with tears I didn't remember crying. When I finally made it home, Isabella took one look at my face and knew something was terribly wrong. I couldn't speak, just shook my head when she tried to ask questions. That night, I lay in our bed, the bed we'd shared for 3 years, where we'd conceived our son, where we'd whispered dreams and promises to each other and waited. Sophia came home around 10 p.m., humming softly to herself. She smelled of that unfamiliar soap again, her hair damp from the studio shower. "How was your evening?" I asked, my voice surprisingly calm. "Oh, just the usual class," she replied casually, sorting through her drawer for pajamas. "Though some of the girls wanted to grab coffee after, so we did that." The lie slid so easily from her lips that I wondered how many others she'd told me. How many coffee dates and girls' nights had really been rendezvous with James? How long had they been laughing at me behind my back? I could have confronted her then, but I had a better idea. A more fitting way to expose their betrayal. The next morning I put my plan into action. I went to the flower shop when it opened, buying the biggest, most expensive bouquet they had. Red roses, white lilies, and baby's breath, Sophia's favorite combination. Then I drove to the wellness center, timing my arrival for the middle of her morning class. The reception area was busy with people checking in for various classes. James was at the front, demonstrating a pose to a group of students, including Sophia. "Excuse me," I said loudly, making everyone turn. "I hope you don't mind, but I'd like to show something special to my wife's class. A sort of appreciation video." James smiled broadly, the smile of a man who thought he was untouchable. "Of course. What a thoughtful husband you are. Sophia is lucky to have you." The irony of his words made my blood boil, but I kept my composure. I handed Sophia the flowers first, watching as confusion and then fear flickered across her face. She knew me well enough to know this wasn't my style. "Marcus," she started to say, but I was already connecting my phone to the studio's display screen. The video began to play. The gasps were audible as the intimate scene from the night before filled the large screen. Sophia's face drained of color. James took a step backward, nearly tripping over a yoga mat. I let it play for a full minute, making sure everyone saw exactly what kind of therapy their instructor had been providing. "Is this the kind of healing you advertise?" I asked loudly, my voice echoing in the suddenly silent studio. "Is this what you mean by special stretches?" Sophia was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Marcus, please. I can explain. It's not what it looks like." "Really?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Because it looks like my wife, who couldn't find the energy to hold our son or spend time with her family, had plenty of energy for extracurricular activities with her instructor." The other students were whispering among themselves, some gathering their things to leave, others openly glaring at Sophia and James. One woman stepped forward, her face red with anger. "I've been coming here for 2 years, she said. "My husband and I trusted you with my postpartum recovery, James. This is disgusting." I turned to leave, but Sophia grabbed my arm. "Please," she begged. "Don't do this. Think about Leo." Her words about Leo stuck in my throat like broken glass. Our son, the innocent baby who deserved so much better than this mess we'd created. I yanked my arm free from Sophia's grasp, my wedding ring catching the morning light one last time before I walked out of that studio. By the time I got home, Isabella was waiting at the door. Her face told me she knew something was wrong, a mother's intuition, perhaps. I plugged my phone into our TV and showed her the video. The sound she made was something between a gasp and a sob. "Mi hija," she whispered, crossing herself. How could she do this? I spent the next hour moving Sophia's things to the front porch. Each item felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds, her favorite sweater that still smelled of her perfume, the jewelry box I'd crafted for her last Christmas, photo albums of happier times. Isabella tried to help, but her hands were shaking too badly. "Marcus," she said finally, "I know what my daughter did is unforgivable, but she's still Leo's mother." I looked at the woman who had become more of a parent to my son in 5 months than Sophia had. She gave up that right when she chose her therapy over her own child. Sophia arrived home an hour later, mascara streaked down her face, looking nothing like the confident woman who'd left that morning. When she saw her belongings on the porch, something in her snapped. "You can't do this," she screamed, charging toward the door. "This is my house too. Let me in." I stood in the doorway, holding Leo, who had started crying at the commotion. "The house is in my name, Sophia. You made sure of that when you insisted on keeping your finances separate, just in case. Well, this is the just in case you planned for." What followed was a month of hell. Sophia alternated between begging for forgiveness and threatening legal action. She created multiple social media accounts when I blocked her, sending messages that ranged from desperate pleas to vicious accusations. "You never appreciated me after I had Leo," one message read. "James made me feel beautiful again. He understood what I was going through." I didn't bother responding. Instead, I focused on building a case for full custody. I had documented every instance of her neglect: the nights she didn't come home, the pediatrician appointments she missed, the countless times Isabella had to step in as primary caregiver. The video from the yoga studio was just the final nail in the coffin. The court proceedings were brutal. Sophia tried to paint herself as a victim of postpartum depression who had made one mistake. But her own mother's testimony proved devastating to her case. "I watched my daughter choose herself over her child every single day," Isabella testified, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I begged her to see a real therapist to get help. Instead, she abandoned her baby for that man." In the end, justice prevailed. I was awarded full custody, with Sophia granted supervised visitation rights on weekends. She was also ordered to pay child support, a bitter pill for someone who had once claimed I was financially controlling for suggesting we share a bank account. The aftermath of the divorce brought unexpected changes. Isabella, despite my protests, felt she needed to move out. "You need to build a new life," she insisted. And Sophia, she is still my daughter, even if I don't recognize her anymore. I hired a live-in nanny, a wonderful woman named Maria who had raised 3 children of her own. She brought warmth back into our home, teaching me how to make proper baby food and singing Spanish lullabies to Leo just like Isabella used to do. Sophia's weekend visits are tense affairs. She comes dressed in expensive yoga wear, her body more toned than ever, but there's a hollowness in her eyes that wasn't there before. Leo cries sometimes when she holds him. He doesn't recognize her scent anymore. Last week, she sent another message: "I know I messed up, Marcus. But you have to understand, I felt like I was drowning in motherhood. James made me feel like myself again. Please give me another chance. We can go to couples therapy." I finally replied, "The only therapy I need is watching our son grow up happy and healthy. You chose your path, Sophia. Now live with it." It's been 6 months since the divorce was finalized. Leo is walking now, his wobbly steps filling our home with the patter of tiny feet. Sometimes, when I'm working in my workshop, he sits in his playpen watching me sand wood, and I see Sophia's eyes looking back at me. It hurts, but not as much as it used to. Isabella visits often, though she and Sophia barely speak anymore. The last time Sophia showed up for her weekend visit, she tried to blame her mother for taking my family away. The restraining order I filed after that incident ensures she can only see Leo under strict supervision. As for James, his wellness center closed down after several other students came forward with similar stories. Turns out Sophia wasn't his first special therapy case. Last I heard, he'd moved to another state to start fresh. To those watching this who might be going through something similar, don't let anyone gaslight you into thinking you deserve less than complete honesty and respect. Trust your gut. Document everything. And remember that sometimes, the people who hurt us the most are the ones we least expect. Leo is crying now. It's time for his afternoon bottle. Before I go, let me just say this. I'm not telling this story for revenge or sympathy. I'm telling it because sometimes the hardest lessons come wrapped in the most painful packages. Sophia taught me that love isn't enough if it's not backed by respect, honesty, and commitment. As I pick up my son, feeling his tiny arms wrap around my neck, I know we're going to be okay. We're not the family I imagined we'd be, but we're the family we've become. And sometimes that's even better than what we planned.